The NTS system, or the KSL Shot Cycle, is a fairly complex style of shooting. At least it seems that way to outsiders. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to make this a series actually, but this is going to be the first video. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to break down how to start using the KSL Shot Cycle or the NTS system, and then how to progress from there. Things to work on depending on the skill set that you have already started at or the level of archery experience you've started at. So it'll definitely be a more than just one video series. It'll be multiple videos and multiple different ways to attack different things from different starting points when looking to switch to or start with using the NTS system or the KSL Shot Cycle. Now you notice I'm here today with my Barebow. This applies for the Recurve, Olympic style Recurve as well. No difference between the two, just slightly different body positioning. It's still the same thing, and I use the same shot style, relatively speaking, between the two methods. So if you shoot Recurve or Olympic style Recurve, I will definitely do one of these videos in this series, of course, on how to apply it to Olympic style Recurve, especially when talking about specific parts of the shot like anchor and things like that. So the goal of this video and the goal of this series is to essentially kind of give you where you should start with this shooting style. This applies to both brand new shooters who are just looking to get into the sport, as well as people who are seasoned archers already, but they're wanting to transition into the actual shot style that I use. There are different levels to this, of course. There are very beginner people who have never shot before and need to focus on some very, very basic things. And there are people that are a lot more advanced that have gotten a lot of shots under their belt already and will need to work through different changes at different rates of speed. So this is just the start. This does not apply to everybody, of course, and I can't make a video that applies to everybody. But what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to start for beginners, people who have never shot the KSL Shot Cycle and who haven't shot very much in the way of archery at all, who are complete novices and are just looking to up their game a little bit. This is what this video is for. However, for future videos, I will always leave it up to you guys to comment below to basically ask where you're at in your style and where you're at in your shot cycle, like integrating it into your system, and then I will continue to make videos building upon this. But part of the challenge is knowing where people are out there and where they're wanting to start. So I'm going to do my best to kind of come up with some scenarios and some things that I will start as a preface to each of these videos in this series, and then I'll expand upon that depending on how much of a request I have for certain types of content or certain questions. So this video, like I've already said, is basically for people who have not shot much in the way of archery at all before. So it's going to seem extremely rudimentary, and if you're experienced in archery, you're going to say, but wait a minute, everybody should know that. Not true. Brand new people don't know this. I've worked with a lot of people who have just started recently, and I'm applying the KSL Shot Cycle, the NTS system, to their style because they've requested this, and I've learned quite a bit as to how to work with people. So that's part of the reason why I'm creating this video, is to give you a starting point, where to start. Because the video series that I've already produced, one for Barebow and one for Recurve, the Recurve or Barebow form series, which I will have links in the description below, and I'll put a card at the top up there for the Barebow form series in case you're interested in that. It is not a good starting point because there are so many technical terms, so many positions that I just gloss over, and you'll get lost if you're a new shooter trying to apply that. Even if you're a moderately decent shooter, applying the form series to you one-to-one is really tough. Where do you start? And it's hard to know that without me going through a couple of different scenarios. So that's my goal, is to just take you through a couple of different progressions as to what to focus on, when to focus on it, when and what's important, and then how to progress forward. So this is the intro, the starting point on how to apply the KSL Shot Cycle or the NTS system to you. Now, what this system has going for it is a repeatable shot cycle, a repeatable shot process that you stick to every single time. In order to be good in archery, in order to shoot tight groups, in order to shoot high scores, in order to win tournaments, even if it's just for fun against yourself in your own backyard like I am here, it requires repeatability. Doing the same thing over and over again with purpose, not just hoping that the arrows land in the middle. You have to do your job to do the same thing over and over again in order for the arrows to land in the same place on the target over and over again. So I'm going to shoot one more arrow here, and then I'm going to give you the basic starting points, and we're going to cover probably 5 different things that you should make sure you're doing the first time you go out there and try to shoot a bow with purpose and with control. Now, one of the very first things that you'll notice here is I don't have a camera on my target downrange. The focus is not at all on the target at this point. The focus is on me, what I am doing right or wrong, and how I'm controlling myself. That's definitely one of the very first things that is important to think about, is you do all the work. You're the one that's controlling where the arrow goes. You're the one that is shooting the bow, and then the bow shoots the arrow downrange. So you're not necessarily shooting the arrow. In a roundabout way you are, but you are shooting the bow, and then the bow shoots the arrow. So what I focus on is myself. So I'm trying to control what I'm doing internally, what I'm thinking about, and externally, what I'm actually doing in order to be consistent, and then the bow will consistently deliver the arrow downrange. So that's the first tip, is that I am focused on myself. I am not focused on where the arrows go. I am not worried if I'm hitting the target. I am not worried if I'm hitting the center of the target, and I'm just not really paying attention to that much at all. Of course, I am paying attention to it a little bit because I want to be safe. I want to make sure I'm not continually missing every single shot. I don't want to break my arrows. I don't want to hurt the environment around me and break arrows on the target butts or shoot them into trees. You know, I want to be in control, but my main focus is on myself, not on the target butt. So that's definitely the first important step, is to always think about what you are doing. Am I standing the same way? Am I thinking the same thing? Am I grabbing the string the same way? Am I approaching everything the same way, or am I looking this way, talking to my buddy that direction, and then pulling back the bow and doing something funny? If I'm back here and I'm talking to my buddy and I'm explaining things, he's telling me a joke, I'm laughing, whatever, I look at him, then I forget about him, go through my process, think about all the same things, do the same things, check my same things. And shoot my shot the same way every single time. Without that, you can't possibly expect consistent results and good shooting over time. The second thing that I can recommend for you to work on at home, if you're new to this, is to always stand on the line the same way. There is no line between my legs, and at many ranges, including the one in your backyard, you don't have any shooting lines. So what you can do for your reference to start is to actually scratch a line in the ground with your foot and make an actual shooting line. Now, this shooting line is a reference that is perpendicular to the target line. The target is that direction. That's the direction I'm shooting my arrows towards the target. And so this line is not pointing at the target, it's perpendicular to the target. And what I'm going to do is approach the line the same way every single time. That's 1 foot on each side of the line. Some shooting styles and some sanctioning bodies will require you to be behind the shooting line, but for this video, for this purpose, it's easiest for me to illustrate using this line as something that I am going to straddle. So the goal is 1 foot on each side of the line and to approach it in the same way. Roughly, you'll want your feet about shoulder width apart, maybe slightly wider. You don't want to stand with your feet together. This is relatively unstable. It's a lot better and a lot more accurate, a lot more consistent to stand with your feet about shoulder width apart. 1 foot on each side, and my feet are pointing parallel to the line. As you can see, they're pointing towards you at the camera with the line in between my legs. Now, depending on how new you are to this or not, you may want to shoot with a slightly open stance. An open stance is when I am almost facing the target. So this is an extreme example, but if this is the target line and the target's this way, this would be considered an open stance, where I'm facing the target more with my feet. This is a closed stance, where my feet are turned and facing directly opposite the target. In the style that I shoot, the KSL Shot Cycle, the NTS System, we shoot with a slightly open stance. If you want to integrate this now, you can, depending on if you're a kid, you may want to start this way, or if you're an adult, a parent to a kid, have them just start with a closed stance. But if you're an adult and you can figure things out a little bit easier, you can stand with a slightly open stance, roughly 10 to 15 degrees of angle open to the target, okay? Not 10 to 15 degrees from this, 10 to 15 degrees from closed. So I'm going to start, for me, with a slightly open stance, 1 foot on each side of the line. Every single time I pick up my bow, every single time I come to the shooting line, I do this. I always check my stance. Feet first is always the way to approach the line. Again, going through my system, thinking about the same things. Even though there's a tractor across the street making all this noise, I'm going to ignore it. Sorry about that. And what I'm going to do is shoot my shot cycle all over again. Over and over and over again, it's always the same thing. Now, also from this position, the next thing that we'll be working on, the third thing in this video, is how to stand upright. We are on our feet, obviously, 1 foot on each side of the line, but what I'm talking about specifically is the body position. Where is my torso relative to my hips, relative to my feet? The goal is to have everything in a straight vertical line. The head over the spine over the pelvis over the feet straight down to the ground. What I don't want you to do is to do this, is to lean back, to be crooked, to throw my hip out. Many kids in the beginning, young people specifically, will, as they go to pick up their bow, they throw their hip out because it just seems to be a little bit more comfortable. Many of them don't have much in the way of body awareness, and what's really beneficial is to start correctly standing upright. So sometimes if somebody's like this, you can actually manually take your finger, push their hip back, and make sure you're keeping their shoulder straight, because if they're here, they might do this. So you want to push the hip back, the shoulder forward, and make them stand upright. So that's the third tip, is to make sure you're standing completely upright. The goal would be to almost look like the letter T, a capital letter T, at full draw, except I'm holding onto the string so this leg isn't as long. So as you can see, when I pull back my bow, feet first, I'm thinking about the same thing. And now my goal is to stand upright and look like the letter T at full draw. It's as simple as that. So number 4 on the list is a consistent anchor. So anchor is where you put your hand on your face. Anchor is where you would use your hand as a reference on your face, actually touching your face as a reference point to be consistent. So in archery, we have a front sight, but no rear sight, at least in recurve archery. Why 2 sights are needed is to make sure we have 2 points of reference to align things. If I were to remove my thumb as the rear reference, I can always have my index finger as a front reference in any sort of angle. But if the arrow was coming out of my index finger, yes, it's hitting you, the camera, right now, but if I'm still using the tip of my finger as my reference, now the arrow's going straight up. So if I use 2 points of reference, my thumb and my finger, put them together like this, I will always be consistent. I can never have it misaligned because they're not aligned, right? So that's what anchor does. It gives you a consistent rear aiming reference to allow you to use a front reference, whether that be your sight pin or your point of your arrow, if you're shooting barebow like I am. It makes things a lot more accurate and consistent this way. So as I go back to draw back, 1 foot on each side of the line, thinking about the same thing, letter T standing upright, but I am going to always put my hand in my jaw the same way every single time. So my goal is to always do the same thing. I'm going to shoot one with my correct anchor. okay? So my reference point is actually taking my jaw and putting it on my hand in the same place every single time. You may not use your hand on your jaw, you might use your fingertip in the corner of your mouth, or maybe the fingertip on underneath your jaw, the top of this knuckle underneath the bottom of your jaw. Whatever it may be consistent at it. Because if I don't do it consistently, I cannot possibly expect the arrow to go in the same place downrange. So if I use a completely different anchor, I miss the target. Now if I do everything completely the same every single time, use my original anchor just like I did the last time, not the last shot, the one before, the arrows go consistently downrange. And now the fifth thing for this video is to have a consistent and proper follow through. Follow through is a critical step in archery as well as any other sport. And I will show you to the best that I possibly can. I'm going to shoot a shot without follow through. And if you've been paying attention to how the shot broke before, you may see a big difference here in the shot. So you'll see how my hand stayed really close to the same place that it was on anchor on my face. You'll see that it did not move backwards like it did for every other shot. And you'll notice that the other shots that I have shot, when I go to release, the hand will essentially, kind of, for the lack of better terms, fly away from my face and head backwards away from the arrow, opposite the direction that the arrow is going. And so what I am doing is I am following through just like you would in any other sport. If I were to be throwing a ball, a rock, or kicking anything, whatever, as I go to make contact with the ball and I kick it, or as I go to let go of the ball or the stone or whatever it is, when I let go, I don't stop. I continue letting my arm swing, and then it stops when there's no longer any ability for my arm to move anymore. Shooting archery, when you let go of the string and you don't move your arm after you let go, is akin to letting go of the ball and stopping your arm. Watch anybody in the world that throws any sort of object and they do not do this. They follow through. And when they do that, they put direction on the object that they are throwing. And they continually let the arm swing, because if they were to stop it as they let go, it will disturb the trajectory and the path that that object is going on. Archery is no different. When I go to let go of my object, the string propelling the arrow, I continually follow through and let my body do its work so the bow can be undisturbed and deliver the arrow consistently and accurately downrange. So the way that archery follow through works, when I go to let go of the string, it's almost as if I'm elbowing somebody behind me that's back there. I'm keeping the tension that I have pulled back at full draw. I'm keeping the tension coming back and around away from the arrow, and when I go to let go, I just let go with my fingers, and then my arm continually moves back, because that is the tension and the direction that it is headed in while I am at full draw. So I do not change my tension or my direction. I do not change how I am pulling against the string, pulling against the bow, and all I am doing is letting go of the string. It would be almost as if when I am at full draw here, if somebody were to come up to me and cut the string while I was at full draw, what would happen? I wouldn't stay still. My arm would have to move backwards, because at full draw, I'm pulling with quite a lot of force. So I'm really focusing on maintaining the tension, let the string go, and elbow that person behind me. Finish the shot, follow through, and don't disturb the arrow. I'm gonna go pull my arrows, and then I'm gonna shoot 5 more shots from 5 different angles around me so you can see all of the things that we just talked about. So it's as simple as that. Just try to do the same thing over and over again. Those are the 5 things that I would recommend to start with, especially if you're a very new beginner or somebody who really has no idea what they're doing. Think about and try to do the same thing every single shot. Approach the line the same way, 1 foot on each side, the same way every time. Stand like the letter T, nice and upright. Anchor in the same place every single time, and follow through every single shot. Now, if you're a seasoned shooter, or somebody who has been doing the NTS system for a while, you might be thinking to yourself, this is all basic rudimentary stuff. Why is this the intro to the NTS video? Well, I'm not going to tell you to take a stretch band and to not shoot for 2 to 3 months and just do the basic things over and over and over and over again. That's not fun. Shooting arrows is fun. You need to be able to get out there and shoot some arrows in order to keep your interest in the sport and to keep you excited and to keep you motivated to move forward. Like I said, there are different levels to this. And as we move forward in the series, it will get more and more complicated. We'll talk about more and more in-depth things and more details, just like the method, the KSL Shot Cycle or the NTS system suggests and professes. There is a level and there is a thing to focus on for every skill type, every skill set, every archer out there. The system that I use has steps and information on how to do certain things depending on how skilled you are. The more skilled you are, the more proficient you are, the more things you think about in detail, because ultimately at the highest levels, to be super proficient and super accurate, super consistent and super good at archery, you have to do things the same way every single time. And this method offers that, but to a new person, it can be too confusing and overwhelming, and that's why we're starting at the most basic beginnings that we possibly could. So like I said, if you have any scenarios, any questions, if you're at this type of stage and you're ready to move to the next stage especially, comment below, let me know what you're specifically looking forward to or looking for help on, because I do want to help you. That's the goal of this channel, is to help all types of archers, all skill levels, and to help develop people to see their goals come true. Even if that's just shooting some arrows in their backyard and having a good time, this is a great place to start. And like I said, this is just a little bit of a series that I figure I'd break out and try to test the waters on and see what people think about it. So like I said, please do comment below. And if you want to know more, do subscribe and hit the notification bell below, because when I upload new videos, you'll get notified. And then that way, you'll be able to see when I put one up, because I have produced hundreds of videos by now, and I can't tell you how many people will comment below saying, hey, you should make a video about this. I'm like, well, actually I have 3 videos that I've already done on that subject, and they've not seen them yet. So subscriptions genuinely help this channel, and it'll help you become a better archer as well.